Hello, Assalamu alaikum everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And today we're gonna talk statistics. Okay, we'll try to keep it as minimal and to the point as possible. But this is something that I feel is essential that we talk about because we're going to compare ourselves to America. Okay, we're going to talk about America, and then we're going to talk about Pakistan, and then we're going to talk about how the two compare to each other and why is it that we are even in the state where we are actually able to compare, right? Okay, so basically right now what is going on? First of all, okay, let's just understand this. What exactly is going on in America? Okay, we know that the American restaurants are empty. Okay, even the mediocre and fast casual chains, if you go there to eat out, you will find that they are now worth $20 to $50 US dollars. Okay, so when you go there to eat, you're spending $20 to $50 for what? Mediocre service, mediocre food. It's a mediocre chain, or it's just a fast chain, or it's it's just an average restaurant, right? A restaurant that is slightly better than average, that would cost you at least $300. American groceries, that is one of the biggest problems right now in America, where American groceries have skyrocketed, and all the things that they took for granted, they're now taking the hit as they realize that because majority of those products and even produce as in vegetables and things that are grown, okay, agricultural products, even those have skyrocketed. Why? Because most of these products, most of these produce have been imported. They're not exactly homegrown, right? And it's more and more shifted towards import rather than homegrown. The American groceries, I'll give you an example of how much the prices have risen. For example, coffee. Now, coffee used to be a sort of a quite luxury, you can say. It wasn't exactly luxury, but it was a bit of a luxury, right? Similar to Pakistan, except that in Pakistan, it was always a bit on the expensive side. But in America, they managed to make it lower in rates, despite the fact that actually 35% of their coffee is imported from Brazil alone. Yeah, as you know, coffee is not something that is native to America as such. So they import coffee as well. And because of the tariffs that have been smacked by Trump since he's come into, since he's taken office, it's to this extent that now coffee is worth $10, right? Pumpkins, that is now an example of produce. Okay, so pumpkins are now $12. A bunch of bananas is about 1.29, I think, was it, dollars, right? And for them, even this much is enough to break the bank, right? And then, okay, so why? Generally, it's not just imports, it's not just tariffs. So what is the other problem? Well, as I said, the farmers are being squeezed because thanks to climate change as well, most of the things that they could grow before on their soil, they can no longer grow. So now they have moved all that again to neighboring countries. And then once again, when those neighboring countries are producing whatever the products are, and then when they are imported into America, again, the tariffs. Okay, so they can't grow the same things that they used to grow on the same soil before, and now they have to depend on neighboring countries and other countries abroad for even produce. As I said, coffee, you would think $10. Oh, okay, but yeah, $10 for them is such a huge leap. In fact, it has come to this point where there's a lady actually who was on social media, and she was saying that she had to spend $1,000 last month alone. Yeah, that was just last month. She spent $1,000 on groceries to feed her 4 kids. And she said it's come to this point where she doesn't even eat anymore. And she's thinking that, oh, so what's the next step going to be now? Starvation? So something that now is worth $2 was probably something that was worth 50 cents, 90 cents, maybe $1, and to them even that, sorry, to them even that is considered a huge amount, right? Now, on the other hand, what is going on in Pakistan? On the other hand, now, Pakistan, although it's going through the same, and it's even worse because in Pakistan, the price of eggs alone fluctuates on a daily basis. Yeah, not even a monthly basis, not a trimester basis, nothing. It literally fluctuates on a daily basis. The petrol prices, they increase on a whim, basically. So it can be a weekly basis, it can be a monthly basis, it can be maybe every 2-3 days, right? Groceries and imported products have also skyrocketed. And as we know, in Pakistan too, coffee was supposed to be some sort of a semi-luxurious thing. But now I think that is fast getting out of hand because of the government restrictions that they imposed on imports. Okay, May 2023 alone saw an historic peak in food inflation. Yes, this is Pakistan, right? We saw a historic peak in food inflation with the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, for food and non-alcoholic beverages reaching an annual increase of 48.65%. Yeah, 48.65%. That is why it's called an historic peak. Never have we ever seen this kind of inflation, of this kind of, food inflation, especially in Pakistan. As I've already mentioned numerous times, and I actually even kind of touched on it in my last podcast where I said that, our poor people could actually sleep, with full stomachs until recently, right? Because we are, in fact, an agricultural country. Nobody is expected to sleep on an empty stomach. Now, Pakistan's year-on-year inflation rate was 4.1% in July 2025. And that is up from 3.2% in June 2025. So that is literally within a month. That was just a month. In a month, the inflation rate jumped from 3.2 to 4.1%. In this year alone, we're talking about between June and July. Okay, this was a sharp monthly rise of 2.9% in July. Okay, understand the difference here. So this reflects price increases in categories like housing and transport through, but food inflation now, they're saying, if you look at the statistics of the, and if you look at the index, it is said that, okay, so food inflation seems to have slowed down between August and September. Okay, now, what are the reasons for all of this that we're going through in Pakistan? Okay, we'll look at that, and then we'll look at the reasons. As I've mentioned the reasons that people are going through this in America, right? What were the reasons of America's inflation? Trump coming into power and then him putting huge tariffs on imports, and the fact that America actually depends on imports. Now, what is the idea behind it is that Trump wishes that America should start becoming self-reliant and that it should start focusing on homegrown businesses and homegrown manufacturing units and homegrown labor and homegrown agriculture. But he will soon find out the reason why America had to start depending on other countries for all of these, right? In fact, right now, even as he's talking about it, he's striking deals with other countries in which he's seeing how much he can get from them, including Pakistan, of course, where he has now struck an MOU with Pakistan. And in fact, the first cargo has already left Pakistan, and now it's probably on its way or probably has reached America, of rare earth metals that are being dug up from Balochistan in Pakistan. Again, without the local government's permission. This is a deal that is struck with the illegal government that America has planted in Pakistan. Keep that in mind. So what are the reasons that Pakistan is going through all of this shit? Yeah, government corruption. The fact that we have an illegal government that we did not even elect. The fact that this government was actually put here by the Americans. The fact that this government's corruption is to such an extent that right now even the IMF is asking them to account for about 11 billion, was it, or 11 million dollars worth of of imports that they seem to have just cooked the books on. Okay, now Why is it that we're having food inflation in Pakistan, especially the fact, as we said, that the dairy products, especially anything to do with poultry, dairy, eggs, they are, especially poultry and eggs. Okay, let's stick to poultry and eggs. Why is it that, or that we don't even have a fixed price, and why is it that the price change is literally on a daily basis? It's because Maryam Nawaz's son Hamza, oh sorry, not Hamza, Maryam Nawaz's son and her cousin Hamza, they both had taken over this market, right? And Hamza especially, whenever they come into power, and then when he took over this market, because he saw that Imran Khan had worked so hard to make people become more and more, let's just say that Imran Khan encouraged people to start small businesses, and that the best form of starting a small business is in which people wouldn't owe so much in loans, and which people can actually see it triple, and which people can actually sustain, was again dairy and poultry, right? So people were beginning to work on that. But the minute this government came, Hamza took over the poultry businesses, right? And then obviously Maryam Nawaz had to give a cut of it to her son too. And so since then, the rate of eggs and poultry change on a daily basis. It changes on the whims of the Sharif family. Every night they sit together, have a family meeting, and they wonder, okay, now how can we push a little more inflation here, right? When it comes to petrol prices, they have skyrocketed again under this government. We were at an all-time low during Imran Khan's government, but since this government has come, we're at an all-time high. Okay, produce. Now, what's with produce? I just said that we're an agricultural country. Why are we having still food inflation, even if we put Hamza's corruption aside, right? Army. The army is also part of it, because the army is trying to take over agriculture forcefully from the farmers, and it's also trying to forcefully take state land, and they're saying that, oh, we're going to turn it into agriculture. Remember, I talked about this when it started sometime last year, or maybe in the beginning of this year, and I kept on telling you about how you can realize that your government or your army is prepping for war. You know that they're doing that when they start taking away your everyday resources like food, because they need to sustain themselves during war. The government hoarded produce. Now, this has actually nothing to do with prepping of war. This is something that this government always does whenever it comes into power. This is something that Nawaz Sharif started. He started it with potatoes, and then he went on with flour, and then he's gone on to sugarcane and sugar, and now they're doing it with almost everything they can get their hands on. Okay, so the government has been hoarding produce until they rot, and this is just to cause deliberate shortage. They did that, as I said, with sugar. They did that with flour. They've done that with anything and everything that they can do, okay? This time, in fact, the government went a step further, and they refused, after striking a deal with the farmers, as they do annually every time whenever there's harvest season, after striking a deal with the farmers on subsidized products, what did they do? They refused to buy the subsidized items like wheat, flour, rice, other sugar, other subsidized items. They refused to buy these items from the farmers, okay? And that caused a huge loss to the farmers, obviously, because the government is the biggest buyer. The government is the biggest buyer because it stores these in their reserves for emergency, and then they also put it in the government utility store chains, which, by the way, was one thing that Maryam Nawaz closed down when she came. Yes, she closed down utility stores. Utility store is a government-owned store in which they ensure that subsidized rates are put at certain products so that anybody and everybody can afford, especially food items. Not just food items. You will find everything that you can find in a normal store, right, in the utility store, and you will find them at lower fixed prices, at minimum prices that are set at the government rate. And you will find obviously subsidized items, right? So she closed down all the utility stores, and then they refused to buy these items from the farmers, right? And then after causing that massive loss, what happened is obviously now the rates of these items had increased because the people of Pakistan decided to help the farmers by buying directly from them. And that means you're buying it at a higher price than you would have if you would go to the market and buy it, if the government had bought it from them and then in turn distributed it amongst the retailers, right? So this same government, after refusing to buy wheat and flour, from these farmers, what did they go and do? They went and at the command of their American masters, they decided to import rotted, absolutely rotted, filthy, completely molded flour of the third quality from Ukraine, I think it was. I'm not sure here, but I'm sure that the scandal broke out because it was Ukraine. And at the end, we had to dump it because, as I said, we are an agriculture country. Our people pride ourselves on quality products, on quality produce, especially when it comes to wheat and rice. These are our staple food. We cannot compromise on the quality of these, okay? We literally survive on these. We live on these. This is our staple food. So at the end, the government bought that for triple the amount that it would ever buy from any other country, even if it did import. Remember, this whole pattern, this whole thing was started by Nawaz Sharif. He's the one who started this. Whenever he came into power, he started doing this, and now it has become their signature move. This government, whenever you see Nawaz Sharif, Shehbaz Sharif, and their family in the government, know that this will happen. Okay? So that was thrown out into the sea, that rotted flour that they got from God knows where. Okay? Now, despite the population, as I said, buying directly from the local farmers, the loss and damage was immense. Okay? Not to mention the hike in prices. Now, and then, due to man-made floods that has caused destruction in Punjab's agriculture, these recent floods that we just had, literally like a month ago, despite the fact that the government is trying to claim that our food inflation has actually become low, and it has steadied between August and September, well, hello, this man-made floods that has caused this destruction of Punjab's agriculture, and Punjab is again the kitchen of Pakistan. Punjab is the main agricultural province of Pakistan. Punjab is the one that feeds Pakistan. So now we're not in the position to feed anybody. Our crops are lost. Everything is gone. The harvest, everything is just gone in the flood. So whatever little produce that the government did buy from the farmers before, and that they had still had in their storage and in their warehouses, that is what then at the end they had to bring out and give back to the farmers, basically in the form of aid. The same produce that these farmers sold to the government are now being given back to the farmers in the form of aid because they've lost everything. Okay, so this is added to the devastation. Okay, coffee I've already talked about, and now 90% of Pakistan's economy crisis, okay, is literally man-made. It is deliberate, and it is due to corruption, as we have seen. Okay? And now the funny thing is, despite the inflation, despite everybody saying they're struggling, despite everybody saying, oh, there is no money, despite even the world also talking about the fact that Pakistan is spiraling, or it has spiraled in these 2 years since Imran Khan was ousted, everywhere you go, it's crowded. The restaurants are full, markets are crowded, and one doesn't even understand what the heck is going on. It shows a huge difference, actually, between the mentality of the people in the USA and the people in Pakistan. I think Pakistanis need to get their priorities straight. I think that the Pakistanis still haven't got their priorities right, whereas the US populace are already entering the emergency mode, which is understandable. We should have entered the emergency mode 2 years ago. But the kind of people that we are, we suddenly become, princes and princesses. We suddenly become descendants of the Mughal, of the Mughal royal family. And then, now it has become imperative for us to go and find the thing that is out of our reach, just so that we can flex, we can prove ourselves to people that, oh, look, oh, you're talking about sugar out of reach? Who's boycotting? We have it at home. You're talking about flour? Oh, really? We have it at home. Come on. You're talking about coffee? Really? Coffee is a luxury? Oh, we have it at home. So the people of America are actually being practical, they have this attitude where, like, I don't care about flexing in front of other people. I have to survive. I have to budget. I have to look at how much is going into my mortgage. I have to look at how much is going into my rent. I have to look at how much is going into transport, how much is going into fuel, how much is going into groceries, how much is going into my insurance. So there's so many things that the American system has put in place that has actually exacerbated the whole situation, right? So that is why they're forced also to be practical. Whereas Pakistanis, on the other hand, they're spending money just to show off, to flex, as I said, and this is to their own loss. Instead of going on emergency mode and thinking, because they thought that, oh, okay, we still have alternative means of investing. But the fact is that these alternative means have also been taken away. These alternative means were brought in by Imran Khan, and these are all now taken away. So where will you stand? Especially when your government is constantly fiddling with the internet, you can no longer even earn money as a freelancer, where Pakistan was the third largest contributor in freelancing. Now, if you look at the status of Pakistanis online as freelancers, they're usually unavailable. Why? Because of our internet situation, which is again deliberate. This is also something that is caused deliberately by the army. Okay? So, here's this other difference, is that countries like the US, when they face losses and recession due to lack of physical money, it is actually because they have a lack of physical money circulation. Okay? Countries like Pakistan, the reason why, even if there's an inflation or even if there is an economic crisis, you don't actually see recession the way you see it in the West. In Europe, in America, when they get hit really bad, as you know, like COVID is a good example. Pakistan didn't get hit badly, but the whole Western world got hit very badly, right? That has a lot to do with the actual existence of the physical existence of money and the circulation of physical money. In the West, they have systematically removed cash flow from their everyday life and from their transactions, and they've made everything virtual, which is plastic. So everything is virtual and everything is on credit. Now, countries like Pakistan, again, the reason we managed to sustain despite the economic crisis is because money is still prioritized as opposed to credit. Okay? Money, cash, actual physical money is still preferred as opposed to credit. Also, there is no such thing as leases and mortgages in Muslim countries. Remember, any loan, any interest-based loan is haram. So even if you're taking loans from banks and if they do place interests, it is something that you can avoid. For example, it is something that you can choose not to go for. It is not something that a bank is allowed to impose on you because it is haram. Okay? They might find legal loopholes to make it acceptable, but it's still not acceptable. And so most Muslims are still averse. They are averse to things such as loans based on interest, and they are averse to insurances, for example, car insurance and health insurance and all. Anything and everything that they see has any westernized footprint, which means that there is interest or there is a large profit margin, and people will not go for it. And so luckily also, unlike the Western countries, this is not something that our governments can impose on us because, as I said, it is haram. It goes against Islam anyway. So this is not a system that is accepted or encouraged in any Muslim country. And that is why you will not see leases and mortgages in Muslim countries, and you will not see interest-based loans in Muslim countries, and you will not see insurances becoming a part of your everyday forced expenditure, right? These are all optional, but they are discouraged by people themselves. Even they don't want to be a part of something that can tie them down, and something again that is not even allowed in Islam. Okay, and this is also why physical money is still given priority in countries like ours. Okay, and why such practices are not the norm. So your government can basically only loot you, as in our government. If you look at countries like ours, our government cannot loot us the way the American and the Western governments are looting their people and systematically pushing them towards homelessness. Our government can only loot us through bills, taxes, exaggerated fees on property, and commodity sales and transfers, and then imports, and of course, your beloved IMF loans. Not to mention through foreign exchange, which again, the Pakistani diaspora, in protest against having an illegal US planted government in Pakistan, they have now, sorry, they have now refused to send money back home, right? So, practically speaking, the US, if you put it this way, is not the richest country. I know people always try to call the US the richest country, and India also thinks, oh, we're the biggest market and this and that. These are all figures. Okay, to me, these figures that are there on the board, they say nothing. To me, the richest country is that country that actually has the resources that it can use to become rich. You know your country is rich when it is being looted. For example, the richest countries on earth are still in Asia and Africa. And that is why we are being looted. We are being plundered to date. We are still being looted and plundered. And how? They are using either our own governments that they've planted within us as traitors to loot us. For example, the Pakistani army and government have been in fact, they have been the masterminds behind all the smuggling that has ever gone on in our country. Smuggling flour to Afghanistan, smuggling gold, smuggling precious metals and stones, semi-precious stones, smuggling. Now they've decided to do this trade, so-called trade with America to Pakistan's loss, by the way. It is not to our gain, it is to our loss that now we will be selling America rare earth metals. This is actually to our loss. There is no advantage to the state itself, to the people of Pakistan itself, especially not to the people of Balochistan, who should have been the first to incur any and every profit that could have been made off of this deal. But Balochistan is once again in the dark, just like how Balochistan has been in the dark when it comes to natural gas. Now, Pakistan has a reserve of 150 years of natural gas, which I would unofficially declare is probably 200, because there is still a lot that hasn't been exploited. And then we have, again, very cautiously about 100 years of petroleum, which again we haven't yet even exploited. We have coal reserves. We have the largest salt mine in the world. We are the only exporter of Himalayan salt in the world. Now, you explain to me how America is the richest country and how Pakistan is poor, number one. As I said, these are just figures, right? So America is the richest country. Why? Because the government is rich. Those businessmen that are connected to the government are rich. Well, in this aspect, Pakistan is poor because Pakistan's treasury is always being looted by the government. So the government of Pakistan are looting the state of Pakistan and putting all that money into their pocket, and same is with the army. And again, you have the businesses that are connected to the people in the bureaucracy and in the government. Okay, so in both countries, because of that, the rich are getting richer and the middle class is basically obliterated, and the poor are becoming poorer, and this disparity between the rich and the poor has increased to such a point where now people are forced to look for ways to survive, while that very small minority in each country are actually making more and more money, right? So here is again corruption. Again, GDP doesn't tell me anything about a country. I'm sorry. To me, a GDP is actually one way to eyewash. It is an eyewash, okay, in my opinion. It is just one way of creating a false illusion to make you think you're secure. For example, Korea, according to their GDP, should be a developed country. What is it that you expect a developed country to be when you say developed? A developed country, in my opinion, is a country where there is nobody living below poverty line, where there is no homelessness, where there is no crime rate, okay, where there is absolute law and order, okay, where everybody has a home, okay. You will find this in most Muslim countries, actually. You will find this in many Muslim countries where the whole population and the rulers, the government, they are actually living, mashallah, in perfect economic harmony, where everything and anything that they want is within their hands. They are living the best of their lives. Again, why? Because their governments did not go through this level of corruption and westernization in the name of capitalism that governments like ours have been doing. Okay? A country can only be considered rich if the people are rich and they can afford a luxurious style, okay? Or at least a decent lifestyle. But in the US, as you can see, the US has all the problems of the third world. It has crimes, it has pockets of neighborhoods and areas that do not get facilities and utilities. They are living literally below poverty line. Again, this is a deliberate, systematic move by the government, to render them to that point. Why? Because they're not white, mainly. Okay, and then the government has put in place again things like credit scores and mortgages and insurances and interest-based loans. Again, all of these leading to pushing people towards the edge, towards poverty, towards barely making ends meet. So the whole country and its people have been running on credit. Okay, so both within the country and outside, the American government and its people, they've been running on credit. Again, I would come back and repeat that Pakistan is considered poor just because of its GDP, but physically, Pakistan is one of the richest countries in the world, which is why it is poor, as I've just said. Okay? So, you know you're rich when every Tom, Dick, and Harry wants to steal from you. It means you've got something. Okay? Now, Pakistan is at that point where we need to think, are we going to allow this smuggling to go on? Are we going to allow this government and this army to stay? Are we going to allow a foreign entity like the US to dictate where our reserves are going to go? First it was China that dug more than the allowed share of gold from Pakistan, and now America has tried to, outmaneuver China in the Gwadar development program, in the CPEC program, and then at the same time, they are now making a bid for, and they have actually taken the rare earth minerals, from Pakistan, right? And yet, nobody has even talked about the basmati rice that for decades, thanks to Zardari, fracking the rice business, the rice export business of Pakistan, the almost 90% of our basmati is being smuggled, and it is sold all over the world as Indian basmati. I'll remind you again, and I've said that a million times in many of my podcasts, there is no Indian basmati. Yeah, that Indian basmati that India talks about, that is not real basmati. Real basmati is only and only in Pakistan. It is exclusive to Pakistan. So whenever you go abroad and you buy Indian basmati, understand that you are actually buying Pakistani basmati that was smuggled via Dubai to India, and that India is stamping its name on Pakistani basmati rice. What can you do about it? Stop buying Indian basmati. Stop endorsing smuggling of rice. Our wheat or flour is being smuggled to Afghanistan. Rice is being smuggled to India. Now rare earth metals are going to America. Our natural gas is already being looted and plundered by our government and the army. And the source from where this natural gas is coming and from where the rare earth minerals are coming, Balochistan, they're being fracked. They're not even given a fraction of what is owed to them. After all, it's coming from there. Their people should be the richest of the rich in Pakistan, and yet they are the poorest of the poor with the amount of losses that they've had to incur. Okay, and then you have India that is constantly fingering the people of Balochistan, and on the other side you have the Pakistani army constantly fingering the people of Balochistan. Where is one supposed to go? So that tells you that despite the fact that the governments that are planted in Pakistan, the government members, they are too busy looting Pakistan, still the people are going out. Still people they have enough money to travel. These last 2 years have seen the largest amount of people traveling out of Pakistan or moving completely out of Pakistan. Again, those who are moving completely out of Pakistan, you will understand that they've wound up everything. They've probably sold their lands. They've done all of that and they've left. They've closed down their businesses and everything, right? A lot of businessmen have left Pakistan. They've shut down their businesses. They've moved back to America or England or other places that they've come from. And they were Pakistanis, by the way. And then you have again in Pakistan, you've got so many people that somehow have managed to acquire enough money that they are traveling. Okay. And then there are again people who are going out in the markets. Everywhere you go, the markets are full of people, the restaurants are full of people. And then you sit and wonder, how are we talking about inflation, and how are we talking about poverty line, and how are we talking about how Pakistan is down in the dumps when everywhere you go there are a sea of people? Again, priorities. Instead of looking for ways to now save and multiply what money they do have, a lot of people are just spending ridiculously, thinking that, oh, you know what, no matter how bad it is, it's not going to go lower than this, which is where they're wrong. Why? You can see it from the fact that the flood has ruined the whole agriculture right now. We will have now food problems, thank you very much, for the first time in history. And then we are going to have people that are going to starve. We're going to have people that are going to have a hard time making ends meet. We're going to have people who, because jobs are already gone too, and I'll come to the details on that as well. And so the poor of Pakistan that actually in fact ate better, pure organic, high quality food in the villages compared to the people who are considered well off in the cities and in the urban areas. Now those poor people are going to have to think about how to make ends meet, because their whole survival has been flooded, right? Thanks to immense corruption these past 2 years, the poor have already started to struggle. The middle, as I said, if you look at the middle class people, the middle class people are beginning to go towards lower middle class. Lower middle class are beginning to go towards poverty, and poverty are going towards below poverty line. So Pakistanis are not making, they're not even saving their money, they're still spending it. And instead of looking for ways to avoid complete financial collapse, people are prioritizing saving face, flexing, rather than lowering their expenses and humbling their lifestyle, which nobody can understand in the West. Obviously nobody will ever even think of doing that, because to them now it is a matter of survival on a daily basis. Again, as I said, granted, we do not have the government induced system of interest based loans. We don't have student loans, we don't have mortgages, we don't have leases, we don't have insurances. That is a great help. Obviously that is something that has saved us many times from actual implosion or collapse. But still, right now we have businesses shutting down, we have multinational companies closing shop, we have people leaving, we have again, we are diving down. Okay, we're going on a nosedive. Okay, and what is it that the Pakistani army is taking all that money, hoarding all that money, and it's spending it on its military. It's just constantly spending it on expanding its military. I mean, it's weapons, it's aircrafts, it's naval ships, it's everything. It is just putting all that money there. Oh yeah, to hell with the people. Have they ever realized that if there is no Pakistan, there will be no army? There will be no need for all of this. You're supposed to be doing all of this for Pakistan, but you're doing all of this at the expense of Pakistan and to the detriment of Pakistan. Okay? But there you are. This shows how narcissistic and how stupid people are. Okay, right now we are facing a huge fallout, and people do not seem to realize that. Okay, although actually now people are beginning to very, very bitterly realize that, because crime rates are up, obviously, but that is again thanks to the government. The government wants it to be up so that they can maintain control. The terrorism factors in, again, every single terrorism incident in Pakistan, especially in these last 2 years, have been deliberate, done by our own army, our own government. Again, why? To maintain power. Okay, and so now we're facing job losses because companies are closing down. The textile industry actually closed down the very year, you can say, within the first few months that this government stepped in. Okay, and I'll come to that too in detail. Okay, so we have no alternative means of investment, as I've already said. We're facing huge job losses. There is no alternative means. Our people need to take stock of their priorities right now before things get really bad. In the US, you can actually physically see that the markets, the malls, the restaurants are empty. They are literally turning into ghost towns. In Pakistan, you will only realize the loss of consumers. When you talk to a retailer, a supplier, or a restaurant owner, a businessman, these are the only people who, based on their record, based on their consumership, based on their customership, on their clients, when they look at all of that, then they are actually the only people who can tell you how much loss they're facing, because a certain percentage of consumership is lost, or a certain percentage of patronage is lost, or a certain percentage of clientele is lost. You understand? But to your eye, to the normal person's eye, when you'll come to Pakistan, when you look around, you will see the hustle and bustle. Every bazaar, every mall, every store, every supermarket, every single place you will go to, every restaurant, and there are people, right? So it becomes difficult to believe that there is any crisis. So Pakistanis are those kind of people, as I said before, that instead of boycotting something when it should be boycott, for example, when the government hoarded sugar and then they created a deliberate shortage of sugar. Now, those people who never even bothered with sugar in their entire lives, suddenly you would find them in lines standing outside waiting to get sugar. Why? Oh, because it has become a rare item. Now it's become a rare item. It's become an expensive item. So now I have to flex. I have to show it, This is the way people in Pakistan think, which is so dangerous. It's not just pathetic and shameful and embarrassing, but it is so dangerous. It is so detrimental that I don't even know how is it that they've managed to survive. Again, because of people like us, because where there are people like them, then there are people like us who do start boycotting. It shows ignorance also, and it also shows again and again, as I say, why in Islam education is an obligation, why awareness is an obligation. Well, thanks to Imran Khan, more and more people became very, very aware of what's going on, and that is why now you see more and more awareness amongst people. You see more and more critical thinking amongst people, whether they're educated or not, regardless of their age, regardless of their economic status or social status in the society, regardless of whether they are blue collar or white collar or whatever collar worker, or employee. So there is that. I'm glad for that, but I think that they still need to work a little more on that, because Imran Khan going to jail seems to make the current government and army think that they can push the people back to ignorance, especially when they flash these false numbers of stock exchange. Look, we've done this. Look, we've risen. We've not risen. We're spiraling every day. Okay, we are literally spiraling every single day, just like the US. Okay, so there is that. If only our people would stop thinking about superficial things that they can show off and flex with. They should now start thinking about, a fabric is just a fabric, clothes are just clothes. We don't need to have branded clothes and branded shoes and branded bags to show off, but as I said, this is the kind of mentality that our people have. Because as opposed to that, sensible people would know that keeping up appearances will not put food on the table. So this is another reason I would say why people are going towards a personal economic crisis as well, because their priorities, as I've said 1,000 times here, are not right. Okay. Now, if you look at the fuel prices alone, expected increase of 1.54 rupees per liter, which represents a 0.6% rise. Okay. Yeah, there is an expected increase of 1.54 rupees per liter. And if you look at high-speed diesel, it is expected to rise by 4.79 rupees per liter, or in other words, 2.9%. Kerosene oil is expected to rise at rupees 3.06 per liter, which is approximately 2.1%. And this is since this government has come. Petrol prices, as I've mentioned before, have significantly increased since March 2022, when the government led by Imran Khan was ousted and the current government came into power. As of October 1st, 2025, the price of petrol, like take motor spirit for example, in Pakistan is rupees 268.68 per liter, while high-speed diesel is priced at 276 rupees per liter. In March 2022, the petrol price was around 126 per liter, and diesel was around 121 per liter. Just look at and this is all within this government. March 2022, this is when this government came and started wreaking havoc, okay? So look at the percentage increase. So the percentage increases of fuel, petrol and all that, are approximately 112.39%. Yeah, this is petrol. So the approximate percentage that you can put on is that the petrol has increased about 112.39%, and high speed diesel has increased 127.82%. Right? Now, there's another report from March 2025 that indicates that the national average for a gallon of regular gasoline was approaching $3, $3 American, and this is America now, okay? I'm now comparing it with America, where in America, the Americans were saying, no, petrol prices seem to have hiked. But actually, if you look at the report from March 2025, it indicates that the national average for a gallon of regular gasoline was approaching $3, representing a decrease of about 2% from when Trump took office. In contrast, oil prices, specifically West Texas Intermediate, which is WTI, saw a decline of nearly 15%, or about 25% since Trump took office, despite claims of increased US output. Okay? Now, back to Pakistan. What is going on here? Let's talk businesses. In Pakistan, as I said, businesses have closed down. Now let's look at it properly. At least 13 major international companies have withdrawn or scaled back operations across sectors such as technology, ride hailing, Uber and all, telecom, energy, and pharmaceuticals between 2022 and mid 2025. This is again the time frame from when this government came, this US planted government, okay, in Pakistan. Between 25% and 30% of textile factories closed down in the period leading up to late 2023. As I said, as soon as this government came in 2022, the first year alone, the first few months alone saw textile industries closing down because the government shut down gas supplies, electricity supplies, and they kept on disturbing businesses like this. Now, this resulted, this closure of textile industries alone, this 25 to 30% of textile factories closing down in 2023, between 2022 and 2023 alone, resulted in an estimate of 700,000 job losses. Okay? Over 1,600 textile factories closed within 16 months in the period leading up to September 2023. Balochistan Wheels Limited went out of business in late 2022. So basically, a huge bulk of our local businesses shut down within the first year of this government's arrival. And now within this last year, multinational companies have withdrawn. Now look at the inflation rate in the US. The inflation rate in the US is, you have 2.9% unemployment and you have 2.9% inflation rate in the US, you have 4.3% unemployment in the US, and you have the S&P 500, that is the Standard & Poor's 500, that is the stock exchange index, stock market, you can say. It is the stock market index that tracks the stock performance of 500 leading companies, okay? So the S&P 500 is up 11.6% since Trump took office, okay? Companies shutting down in the US. Let's look at that scenario. According to a data released by Statistics Canada and cited by CBS News, the business closure rate in the US has remained relatively stable during 2025, hovering between 4.7 and 4.8%. In other words, America is actually pretty stable. Okay? The kind of business closures that Pakistan has been going through these past 2 years, since Trump has taken office, there may have been a steady small but steady decline, but it has now stabilized. Okay. Now, population, and this will tell you why we're comparing Pakistan with the US. What is the population of the USA? 340.1 million. And this is the 2024 census. Okay. According to the 2024 census of Pakistan, the population is 251.3 million. Okay. And this is why I'm comparing America to Pakistan, just based on our population alone, based on the fact that we are literally practically going through the same things. We're going through inflation, we're going through food inflation, although Pakistan claims, or at least the data, the statistics by the Bureau in Pakistan claims that food inflation has actually declined. But as I said, hello, we just had the floods. You just wait and see what the food inflation does now as an aftermath of these floods, right? So Pakistan on one side is basically at the hands of a corrupt government and the corrupt army that are literally looting and plundering Pakistan instead of making money for Pakistan, because Pakistan is essentially physically and resources wise one of the richest countries in the world. The fact that we do not have any such interest-based systems in Muslim countries alone saves most of the Muslim countries from actual collapse or actual recession or actual bankruptcy. And yet we are at this state where we have high inflation, where we have low GDP or negative, it's basically on the negative, where we have still had the audacity to put restrictions on imports, and we are also disturbing the homegrown businesses, forcing them to shut down. So in Pakistan, literally steps are being taken. As I said, I've said this many times, and this is proof that I told you that this government and this army are basically here to wrap things up for the Americans and the British. They're just now getting ready to tie the bow. And remember, I told you that when they are now ready, that and they know that now their part is almost done, you will see them all suddenly fall sick and fly abroad. Who's the first to have run away? As always, Nawaz Sharif. Nawaz Sharif has already done a runner. His daughter is going to follow suit. Okay, yes, she will follow suit. You just wait and see. Everybody is now suddenly Zardari, everybody is now suddenly going to have health issues, and they're going to go back abroad, and all the money that they've been looting through the IMF, through World Bank, through other countries, through aid, through stealing from people of Pakistan, through smuggling the resources out of Pakistan, from all of that, they're going to take all that money again, because this is their last haul, by the way. Yes, they came in knowing that this was their last haul. So this time they're going big. They're going all out, okay? And when they leave, this damage, already the damage that they'd done before was so bad that it would have taken Imran Khan 50 years on a good day to fix that damage. But now this damage, this is going to be permanent. This is going to be that damage that is now only going to be rectified once the world war breaks out and everybody dies and many countries get destroyed, and then the whole world begins to rebuild. That is when Pakistan will start rebuilding itself. Just saying, I think it's time to get things in perspective. We need to stop turning a blind eye. We need to stop pretending that everything is okay. It's amazing how there are still people in America and Pakistan who try to keep on and on claim that, oh no, things are still fine. Oh no, who says there's a crisis? Oh no, there is a crisis. There is a crisis. And although maybe the sadistic part in me would probably celebrate the crisis in America, saying that, okay, you've been doing this to us for no less than 7 decades, and especially these last 2 years, what you, the American government, did to us, this is karma. This is karma that the Americans are now going through the exact same thing that they have put us through. Yes, one side of me would love to say that to them, but the truth is, at the end of the day, on the both sides, it's the people that are suffering, and the governments are making money off of that suffering. The businesses tied to the people in the governments are making money off of that suffering. Although in Pakistan, actually, it's kind of hilarious, because in Pakistan, even the businessmen now can make nothing, because even the biggest and the biggest of the businessmen are forced to shut down or leave, because anybody that showed solidarity to Imran Khan is being threatened. Their families are being threatened. Their businesses are being threatened. In fact, 50% of the businesses, the local businesses that shut down within this year alone, were deliberately shut down by the army. Yes, they were literally shut down by the army, just because those businessmen were supporters of Imran Khan. We all are supporters of Imran Khan. You will shut down the whole country. Again, if there is no Pakistan, there is no Pakistani army, there is no Pakistani government. You people are living off of us. You're leeches, parasites. You're living off of us. You're living off of the existence of Pakistan. If there is no Pakistan, there will be no you. And I hope you get to see that day. Actually, I hope you get to see that day where you realize that there is no you. And this is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.